Hi guys, so today we are going to go over again some counterclaims and rebuttals. I read your feedback in your daily forums, and a lot of you said that this is the area that you're struggling with the most, which is totally normal because in seventh grade, this is the first time that you're having to look at counterclaims and figure out rebuttals. So if you're having a hard time with it, don't stress. It's totally normal. The more we practice, the easier it will get. So when I was going over your quizzes and some of the assignments from last week, I would agree that these are the two areas where there's some confusion. So what we're going to do today is instead of looking at an entire article, I'm giving you just little pieces, little paragraphs that we're going to analyze and try to pick out the counterclaims or the claim first, and then the counterclaim, and then the rebuttal. Okay. So if you look up here at your directions, it's asking you to highlight the claim in yellow, the counterclaim in blue, and the rebuttal in green. If you do not know how to highlight in Google Docs, it is this little, I don't know, it kind of looks like a paintbrush maybe, up here at the top. If you hover over it, it does say highlight color. So you just would need to drag over what you want to highlight, come up here and click a highlight color and it will highlight it for you. Okay. So if you're not sure how to do it, that's how you would do that. All right. So I got a little typo there. Okay. So example 1 says students should have to pay fees in order to play high school sports because school budgets are decreasing. Schools across the country have lost money in their budgets and have eliminated some extracurricular activities. Critics argue that students who come from lower income families might not be able to participate because of these fees. However, many schools offer scholarships or will get businesses to donate money to sponsor the students that cannot afford it. I think this one is a pretty easy example because we have some keywords that are helping us. When you see the word however, that should stand out to you. When you see the word critics, that should stand out to you because those are key terms, keywords that we're looking for. So first thing we need to do is figure out the claim. So this author's claim, they're saying that students should have to pay fees because the schools don't have a lot of money. And I think that this is the case for even like if you play Pop Warner or you play most sports, you do have to pay some kind of a fee regardless, just because sports and athletics are super expensive. And in schools, they keep cutting the budget. So it falls on the students and the parents to pay those fees. So then the author kind of explains that the reason that they're making this claim is because schools have lost money. So they're backing their claim up here by explaining a little bit. So schools across the country have lost money in their budgets and have eliminated. So that's just an example that is backing up this claim. Then we get to the sentence here that says, critics argue that students who come from lower income families might not be able to participate because of the fees. This is the counterclaim. This is the other side. This is what someone might say in response to this, right? So if our author is saying that, yeah, kids should have to pay, the other side of this is people saying, well, what about kids who can't afford to pay? And then they can't play sports at all. Anytime you see the word critics, that is going to stand out. A critic is someone that is on the other side of this argument. Also, when you see the word argue here, that should stand out to you as well. If they're arguing, it means that is their side. That's the other side of the argument. Oops. Then we have however. However is a key term that points to a rebuttal. So I'm going to highlight this green and I'm going to make it bold just because it's a keyword. However, many schools offer scholarships or will get businesses to donate. So our author here is giving a rebuttal by saying, yeah, okay, maybe some kids can afford it. However, there are other ways around it. There are scholarships, there are sponsorships, there are businesses that will donate money to help. So the author here is shooting down that side that says, kids who can't afford it can't play, by saying that, yeah, but there are ways around it. You can get a scholarship, or you can get someone to donate money. And that is how they're shooting down that counterclaim. So down here in the section where it says explanation, I'm going to give myself a little room here. What I would like you to do, the directions say, explain each item in your own words as though you are teaching it to someone else. So step one of this is to read it and be able to highlight and figure out those three different things: claim, counterclaim, and rebuttal. Step two, and this is taking it up a notch, is being able to explain it. So I'm going to explain it by saying, this author claims that students should have to pay to play sports in high school because schools cannot afford to allow everyone to play. The other side of this argument is that some kids would not be able to play because they cannot, oops, I spelled that wrong. They cannot afford the fees. The author, oh goodness, my spelling. The author shoots this counterclaim down by saying that they could get a scholarship oh my word, if I could spell anything right today, scholarship, or get a donation from the community. Okay, so I am not just highlighting it, because the thing about the first step here is you could highlight and you could just totally, completely guess and get lucky and get it right. And then I don't really know that you totally understand. So that's why I'm asking you to do this explanation section here, so that you're taking what you've highlighted and you're explaining it to me so that I know for sure that you understand it. Okay. All right, so our second example here is about plastic water bottles. It says states should ban the sale of disposable plastic water bottles because it is harmful to the environment. Many people think that the sale of bottled water in stores is beneficial because it is a great alternative to other drinks that are very high in sugar content. While this may be true, we must still acknowledge that 30 billion plastic water bottles are disposed of each year. These bottles take hundreds of years to decompose and are very damaging to the environment. So again, here, our first sentence ends up being our claim. So I'm going to highlight this yellow. Now, you should notice that just because it's the first sentence of a paragraph, it doesn't always mean that that's going to be the claim. Okay. I think in these three examples here, that's just kind of the way it worked out, but sometimes that isn't always the way. So don't just automatically go to the first sentence and highlight it, because that might not be the claim. You do have to read the whole thing to kind of figure it out. So this author is arguing that plastic water bottles should be banned because they're harmful to the environment. Many people think, we've got a keyword here. I'm going to make that bold. This is used to kind of point out the other side. Many people think that the sale of bottled water in stores is beneficial because it is a great alternative to other drinks that are very high in sugar. That's our counterclaim. And again, it's not always going to be a claim followed by a counterclaim followed by a rebuttal. Okay. Usually you'll get a counterclaim and then a rebuttal. I could say that, but it may not always just fall into this like kind of perfect pattern where you have them in this exact order. So many people think, so this author is acknowledging that the other side is going to say that, yeah, they might be harmful to the environment, but they're good for people because, they're drinking more water and water is healthy. Then our author shoots this down by saying, while this may be true, another kind of keyword to us, they're acknowledging that, yeah, it's true. It's better to drink water than to drink things that have a lot of sugar. And then they go in and they throw in a really good piece of evidence about 30 billion plastic water bottles to kind of shoot down that other side. So this here is going to be our rebuttal. And it just so happens that in this rebuttal, this author uses evidence also. That doesn't happen all the time, but in this case, it works. Their rebuttal, the way that they're shooting down this counterclaim is by saying, yeah, maybe it is healthier, but still, you can't ignore the fact that 30 billion plastic water bottles are disposed of every year. And then they give this final kind of explanation here that the bottles take hundreds of years to decompose and are very damaging to the environment. So they're backing up that rebuttal by throwing in some more explanation there. Okay, so now we need to explain. So we're going to say that this author is arguing that plastic water bottles should be banned because I shouldn't talk and type at the same time. I clearly cannot do it. BCAU, because they are bad for the environment. Okay. The other side argues that water is a better alternative than sugary drinks, and water bottles should be sold. The author shoots this side down by explaining that these bottles take a very long time to decompose and are damaging the environment. I'm going to add to this here actually, because I think I want to use a little more of our actual rebuttal in my explanation. So the author shoots this side down by explaining that these bottles, I'm going to change this a little bit by explaining that 30 billion bottles are thrown away each year and take a very long time to decompose. And I'm going to take out this last part here because I don't think it's necessary. Just kind of reworded that a little bit. So the author shoots this side down by explaining that 30 billion bottles are thrown away each year and take a very long time to decompose. Alrighty, so moving on to our last example. This one is about surveillance cameras. So this says, cities and towns should install surveillance cameras to keep people safe. For example, surveillance cameras lowered Baltimore, Maryland's crime rate by almost 25%. In addition, video cameras in London, England have helped the police to catch many criminals. Some people claim that instead of spending money on cameras, towns should just hire more police. However, hiring more police officers would be much more expensive than the cost of installing more cameras. And I have typos in here. More expensive. Okay. So this author's claim, again, we just get lucky and it happens to be the very first sentence, is that cities and towns should install surveillance cameras because they help to keep people safe. Then they explain by giving two back-to-back examples here. So they give an example of Baltimore, Maryland, and then they've got a piece of evidence in there with 25% that the crime rate went down. And then also give an example of how they've helped him to catch criminals in London, England. Those, I'm just going to put a comment in here. Those are just examples and evidence. Some people claim, there is our little keyword hint, make that bold, that instead of spending money on cameras, towns should just hire more police. There's our counterclaim, highlighted blue. So some people are saying, no, you shouldn't spend money on more cameras, just hire more police. However, there's another little hint for us. Hiring more police officers would be much more expensive than the cost of installing more cameras. So the rebuttal and the way that this author is shooting that counterclaim down is by saying, yeah, but cameras are way cheaper than having to hire more police officers. Okay, so this one's pretty easy. For our explanation, I'm going to say, oops, turn off this. This author claims that surveillance cameras should be installed to help keep people safe. The other side of this argument is that the money would be better spent on hiring more police officers. The author shoots this side down by saying that more police officers would be more expensive than more cameras. Okay. So that one has a pretty simple explanation. So we've got our claim. I kind of highlighted and put a little note next to the examples and the evidence. Our counterclaim is blue, our rebuttal is green, and then we went ahead and explained all of it. Up here, I'm just going to go ahead and highlight this piece of example. And then in our first one here, I'm also going to highlight this and say this is his explanation. And the reason that I'm doing that is because there was some confusion where some of you are using examples and evidence as claims. You're using examples and evidence as reasons. So I just wanted to be clear that sometimes it's just the author explaining. It's not necessarily a reason. It's just the author giving an example or giving some evidence. So you do have to really analyze these and look at them closely so that you can tell the difference between what's a claim, what's a counterclaim, what's a rebuttal, and then whatever's left over is just your explanation and your evidence. Okay? So these are the 3 examples that you are going to need to do today and turn in. You can follow it exactly how I did it on here. I appreciate that you took the time to watch this video and learn how to do this the right way. If you have any questions, go ahead and send me an email through Google Classroom or send me a message on Remind. Thanks, guys. Have a good day.